welcome back, everyone. I'm Mark Johnston, your host here at VID5 Conference, sponsored by our friends at Laurentian Bank Securities, and it is the top of the hour. Our next guest is a wonderful guest speaker, JJ Jennex, who's the communications manager at Guanajuato Silver. JJ, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mark. It's very wonderful to be here. I'm going to dive in. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I will say Guanajuato is one of my favorite names of the entire conference, and I've been practicing it for 2 days. So
it's
thank you.
Very clear that you have been practicing it.
Very good. I'll leave you to the presentation. I'll see you on the other side for Q&A.
Thanks, Mark. So yes, I am JJ Jennex. I am the Gerente de Comunicaciones for Guanajuato Silver. For those of you expecting James Anderson, don't worry. He will feature in our presentation here very shortly. So we are the newest precious metal producer in the world. Our main mine is called El Cubo. It's located in central Mexico. It's a epithermal, high-grade underground mine. It is very rare. Now, if you have been sitting through all these presentations, you might be of the impression that new precious metal producers are coming around all the time, but this is not true. It's very rare for a junior mining company to make the leap to producer status. We're the 1 in 1,000 that have done it. So if you're looking for something new within the precious metal space, we are it. Here we go. So we purchased our El Cubo mine back in April of this year. Since that time, we've been refurbishing the mine, getting it ready for restart. It's been on time, on track, on budget. That is our mantra. It's been working for us to this point. We started mining in August of this year, processing in September, October, and we produced our first concentrate in late October. And almost the next day, just a couple of days later, we held a grand opening ceremony for the mine. And I have a video queued up here because I know everyone on this call would have liked to have attended that ceremony. And we're going to play a very quick video. It's about 2 minutes long, which highlights the mine and highlights the grand opening event.
Bienvenidos a la gran reapertura de El Cubo. Sí. Mi nombre es James Anderson, soy el presidente de Guanajuato Silver y quiero agradecer a todos por venir a esta celebración. Gracias. El Cubo no es una mina grande, pero es una mina importante. Of course, we need to thank all of our workers and contractors who have worked so hard and returned El Cubo back into operation in a record time period. So many skilled and hardworking professionals working many, many hours to achieve this feat. Thank you so very much. Finally, and for me, most importantly, I want to thank my partners, Gerardo Dorado Cantu and Ingeniero Hernan Dorado Smith. It was just 2 years ago when it was only the three of us. Now we have 250 people working here, and I think that that's an extraordinary feat. After 35 years in business, these are two of the very best business partners that I've had, and I thank you so much for all of your help and work. There are today about 300 families who now rely on this operation for their livelihoods. That is a responsibility that Guanajuato directors and management take very seriously.
El 95% de nuestra plantilla es mexicana. El 80% es de Guanajuato.
For our shareholders now that we've achieved our very first production, we can now start to think about the future. We have El Cubo, but we also have El Pinguico just 8 kilometers away, and we have a number of different opportunities within the Guanajuato area to be able to get production, to be able to fill this 45,000 ton a month capacity that we have at our El Cubo mill. So that's where the future is for Guanajuato Silver, is right here in Guanajuato.
Okay. The restart of the El Cubo mine is a genuine feel-good story for the community in Guanajuato. It's a genuine feel-good story for the mining industry as a whole. So we are now deep into the ramp-up phase. What you can expect to see from Guanajuato Silver going forward is increasing mine tonnage, increasing grades, improving overall precious metal recoveries, and most importantly, consistent and more frequent sales of precious metal concentrate, all leading us towards this number you see here, projected annual average production of 1.8 million silver equivalent ounces. That is from our PEA, and our internal models also line up with that. So we're expecting to come in around that number for 2022 and then go beyond it to go above 2 million silver equivalent ounces in 2023 and beyond. These are silver equivalent ounces. They run in terms of value, 60-40 in terms of silver over gold. And we don't produce anything else. This is a pure precious metal producer. There's no base metals here. There are two mines in play, El Cubo, where we're producing now, and Pinguico, which we're advancing to restart. So that's what you're buying when you become a shareholder of Guanajuato Silver. We are a company that revitalizes, refurbishes, restarts older mines, brings them back into optimal production. And we are right in one of the great silver mining camps in the world, the Guanajuato mining district, which is in the heart of the Mexican silver gold belt. They've been mining in Guanajuato for almost 500 years. We're surrounded by past and present producing mines. The mines of Guanajuato are not just drivers in terms of wealth creation. They're drivers in terms of world history, monuments to the silver mining industry like Valenciana, which even today I believe is responsible for 25-30% of all the silver that's ever been mined in the world. We are exactly where we want to be, which is why we called the company Guanajuato Silver. This is a look at our Cubo Mine. Again, it's a high-grade epithermal underground mine. It's a big complex. There's over 25 kilometers of underground workings here. Most of it is 4x4 access. The processing here is standard. It's crushing, grinding, flotation, and then the production of a precious metal concentrate. It's a long-lived mine. It's got almost 200 years of continuous operations. Now, in 2012, Endeavour purchased this mine, Endeavour Silver, and they put $30 million of upgrades into the mine, and we have put in $3.5-4 million of upgrades ourselves. So if you saw from the video, if you walk around this complex, and everyone on this call, you're invited to come down at any time, you will look around and most stretches of the complex look brand new. Endeavour produced silver and gold here until late 2019. At that point, they shut the mine down, and then they sold it to us for $15 million. So the big question is, why did they shut the mine down in late 2019? And why did they sell a $200 million asset to us for $15 million? The answer has largely to do with the mill that was built. Endeavour built a mill which was just too big for this mining operation. Endeavour paid a lot of money for this asset. They bought it at a time when the silver price was much higher than it is today, and they felt the best way for them to get their money back was to run at full capacity. You see that there, the mill's capacity is 50,000 tons per month. And when you're running at that rate, which is a very fast rate, and you're chasing narrow, high-grade veins, you can get in a situation where it doesn't give you a lot of time to look around and make thoughtful, strategic decisions on where to mine next. And ultimately, you can get in a situation where you can run out of ore. The second aspect of mining at that rate is that Endeavour used a minimum vein width of 2.6 meters. So in order to achieve 50,000 tons per month, again, that was the number one priority for the mine. In order to achieve that, they mined at a wide minimum vein width, and that meant that a lot of waste, a lot of dilution was going into the mill. Ultimately, Endeavour was mining for volume. We, on the other hand, are going to mine for profitability. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to slow down. We're going to mine at about half capacity, 25,000 tons per month, which gives us lots of time to look around and make strategic decisions on where to mine next. Secondly, we're going to mine at a much more narrow minimum vein width. The cutoff is 1.4 meters. The average vein here is about 1.5 meters. So we believe that this strategy is going to be a winning strategy for El Cubo. That minimum vein width ensures less waste, less dilution, less tailings, and less cost per ounce produced. This is the look at the Vio Pando vein. This is a long section. This is one of the primary veins at El Cubo. These shapes you're looking at, the colorful shapes, those are the stopes. That's the areas that we're mining right now. We're mining 1850 stope, the small shape in the center. We're blasting there, moving material to surface. All of the red dots that you see here, those were drill holes that were completed by Endeavour Silver. The yellow holes are to be completed or have been completed by us. They're infill drilling, mine control or grade control, and mine planning holes. What I want to do is just focus in on one of Endeavour's hole, and you see it here in the center. That's CAS 50. Now you can mine over a 4-meter width, and that's what Endeavour would have been doing. They would have been mining it mechanically. And in today's pricing environment, with silver around $22 an ounce, you can probably make money. They would make money at that rate. We, on the other hand, we're going to mine much more selectively. We're going to use cut and fill technique, some residue mining. We're essentially going to carve out the vein, which means, again, less waste, less dilution, less tailings, which is very important, and ultimately less cost per ounce produced. The other upside of having a much more narrow cutoff is that it opens up a lot more resource for us. Endeavour, because their cutoff was around 2.6 meters, and again, the average vein here is about 1.5 meters, a lot of the material would not factor into their resource model, Vulcan model. If you look at these stopes, for example, just looking at the blue areas, none of that material would have factored into Endeavour's resource model. Endeavour would have looked at these stopes and they would say there's about 30,000 tons available to be mined here. When we look at these stopes, we see over 200,000 tons available to us. This is a look at the primary veins in the area. The stopes that I just showed you. So these 3 stopes are actually right here on the left-hand side of the page. Oh, I'm going to turn on my drawing technique just to try it out. There we go. Those are the stopes. That's where we're mining right now. The primary vein here is the Via Pando. Running parallel to it is the Dolores vein. They're about 700 meters apart. What's very exciting here is that in addition to those 2 primary parallel veins which run north-northwest, there are these transverse veins, and they cut perpendicular, and you can see them marked here, La Loca, Santa Cecilia. Those veins are a bit more narrow, but they run higher in terms of gold content, and none of those veins, none of the transverse veins would have factored into Endeavour's resource model. We think there's a lot of upside here, a lot of potential. We believe that's going to be a big part of our future, and we are gearing up to mine those transverse veins. And transverse veins are significant. The primary mine today in Guanajuato for Great Panther, for example, the San Ignacio mine, is a transverse vein. This is a look at Via Pando underground. That's highly brecciated, high-grade material. That's the main vein. In order to be successful mining or chasing these kind of veins, high-grade, narrow epithermal veins, and we're chasing about 19 of them at El Cubo, you've got to have the expertise in place. And fortunately, the Mexicans are the best in the world at doing this. This is a look at Pedro Delgado. He's our mine manager. He just spent the last 25 years working for Fresnillo, which is the biggest silver mining company in the world, working at the adjacent mine, which was mining the exact same vein. So yes, we've got the expertise in place to be successful underground. And one of the reasons we're able to attract top talent like Pedro Delgado is because we are located only a 40-minute drive from downtown Guanajuato. Now, I expect a lot of people on this call have never heard of Guanajuato, and that's a shame because it is truly a beautiful colonial city, lots of oozing with culture and art and restaurants. There's lots to see here. If you are a miner, you can choose to work on a project and be flown into some remote location for 2 weeks at a time, or you can work at El Cubo and you can spend every evening back at Guanajuato. The city also has a university, the University of Guanajuato, which has one of the best mining schools in the country. A lot of our employees are graduates of the University of Guanajuato, including our COO, Hernan Dorado. When we took the El Cubo mine, part of the transaction, it came with over 7,000 hectares of exploration claims. all within, of course, Guanajuato. And again, I keep pointing out that we believe Guanajuato, this region is right time, right place, is exactly where we want to be. And in terms of exploration, we believe that perhaps the best exploration project in the area is the Pinguico Mine. So Pinguico is located about 5 miles south of El Cubo. At one time, this was the highest grade silver mine in the area, and that's saying something because, again, this is Guanajuato. The mine itself was listed through a U.S. company on the New York Stock Exchange. They mined here until 1913, at which point the mine was shut down because of the Mexican Revolution. Now, that sounds like ancient history, and in some ways it is. The mine has been on hiatus ever since. What we're doing right now is we are conducting a methodical exploration program designed to create a maiden resource, at which point we will then extrapolate a mine plan and try to quickly move material from Pinguico up the road to El Cubo. Remember, we've got a mill up there that's operating at half capacity, so we want to take advantage of that and move material from Pinguico the short distance up the road to El Cubo for processing. In addition to the exploration drilling or the resource drilling, definition drilling that we're doing at Pinguico, there's also a very exciting exploration target, a potential game changer. The Pinguico vein runs into the Veta Madre, and the Veta Madre is the primary structure, the primary vein is the mother vein in Guanajuato. This is the structure that's responsible for many historic and major veins like Valenciana. And where these two structures meet, that is a very exciting drill target, a potential game changer. We hope to drill that certainly in Q1 of next year. Additionally, Pinguico, which again is a restart, there is a above ground stockpile and a below ground stockpile available to us. So the above ground stockpile, you see a photo of it here. This material is not high grade. It runs about 100 grams per ton. And we are now moving this up the road to El Cubo for processing. So it doesn't cost us anything to mine it. We just put it on a truck, drive it up the road for El Cubo. We just started doing this recently. And we don't have a plan yet to access the below ground stockpile. And the below ground stockpile is not waste. It is running around 300 grams per ton. And all of these stockpiles represent oxygen for El Cubo and ensure that there's always tonnage available for processing. Look at our PEA results from 2021. The first thing to note is that we are jumping or have jumped directly from PEA to production. That's not common within the junior mining space. Most junior mining companies are in the business of writing reports. They go from PEA to pre-feas to feasibility study, and then they reinterpret the data and start all over again. You can spend a lot of time and a lot of money trying to drill out a resource for a narrow epithermal vein system. And in some ways, that's what we're doing at Pinguico. Or if you have a mill like we do, you can mine it. So that's exactly what we're doing. Because of the nature of the deposit and because it's a PEA, we only get credit for the first 7 years of mining here, but we believe this is going to be a long-lived, multi-decade mine. Our goal is to end every year with more ore in front of us than we started the year off with. The economics for this project are highly sensitive to the silver gold prices, obviously. The internal rate of return here today at today's silver prices is somewhere around 300%. If silver were to climb up to just $25 an ounce, which it was just recently, the internal rate of return here jumps to around 1,000%. And you can see the operating cost here of $9.42. Now, our internal models don't get quite down to that number. All-in sustaining cost is somewhere around $11, $12. A big margin, though. And of course, in the mining space, and I know this is a cliche, but margin is king. I'll highlight just one thing on the drilling here. When you look at the indicated resource, you look at the grade. Right now, the grade that we are bringing out, or the head grade from the current operations, it is not achieved this number at this point, but it's well within our internal model. And as we move forward at El Cubo, move past essentially the components or the resources that were left to us by Endeavor, then we will get into the much higher grade material. We announced a financing in the mid-November, a financing of $8.25 million. It quickly became oversubscribed. We closed on the first tranche of that, $8.1 million last week. And the numbers you see here reflect that closing. However, we're going to close on another about $1 million, just over $1 million. And so these numbers will move up slightly. The overall number is $9.5 million. What is reflected in these numbers is the fact that we only paid $15 million for El Cubo. Because we were able to get, again, a $200 million asset for $15 million, our share structure is still intact. And that's still the case with the current financing that we've closed on. We have achieved producer status. We expect to go cash flow positive in Q2 of next year, and still the share structure is intact. The share chart itself reflects exactly where we are in the life cycle of a deposit, life cycle of a junior mining company. We've achieved producer status. Sometimes this is considered to be the riskiest moment for a mining company, but over the coming weeks and months, as we demonstrate that we can produce silver and gold profitably, as we are doing right now, then we would expect that this would generate a re-rating of the share price. Of course, we are just completing a finance, and we expect to close again on the second tranche here today, tomorrow. Once that's out of the way, then we're looking forward to heading into 2022 financially secure. The purpose of the financing that we've just done, which now gives us around $16 million Canadian in our treasury, that is largely a buffer. So we've established financial security as we head into 2022 and look to complete the ramp up, and as I say, become cash flow positive in Q2 of 2022. Look at our major shareholders. Endeavor Financial, of the $15 million purchase price for El Cubo, $5 million of that was taken up in shares. That's how they achieved primarily their position. They have since participated in the current private placement. They were the lead order, in fact, for $3.1 million. In fact, almost every entity on this list participated in the private placement, which demonstrates excellent support from our current shareholders. And if you look at Endeavor and you say, well, why are they investing in Guanajuato silver? This is actually even written on their webpage. They look at the best way for them to realize value from El Cubo, an asset which, again, they once owned, is to do so as a shareholder of Guanajuato Silver, and we agree with them. Rimercam Capital is a precious metal fund based in Connecticut. It's run by a gentleman named Dan Oliver, who is also a director of Guanajuato Silver. I have not spent a lot of time, any time, in fact, on this presentation, talking about why you want to be invested in precious metals, silver and gold. But if you're looking for that kind of information, I highly recommend that you go to the Rimercam website and review the commentaries and the interviews by Dan Oliver. He gives excellent information, particularly from a historical perspective on where precious metals may be headed. VBS is an Australian family office. They actually put a gold mine into production themselves, so they're highly technical. And all of the mining knowledge represented on this list is a major endorsement for the quality of the projects that we own today and the ability of our management team to execute. I should point out that these percentages are all going to go up a little bit. Again, most of the firms, with the exception of Eric Sprott, participated in the current financing. So I think Endeavor will be over 12%, for example, moving forward. And looking at the management team, that is led by James Anderson. So if you actually went to each and every one of these firms and you asked them, why are you invested in Guanajuato Silver? They will all tell you, because of James Anderson. So James Anderson has decades of capital markets experience. He's a deal maker. And that's really important because we view the entire Guanajuato region as being within our purview. There are many, we're surrounded by past and present producing mines, some of them private, some of them public. Again, remember, we've got a mill at El Cubo that we want to fill to full capacity. And so we do believe that M&A activity is going to be a big part of our future going forward, and James will lead that charge. James's partner in all of this is Hernan Dorado. Hernan is a mining engineer just like his father. His father was featured in the video earlier. And Hernan is, as I said earlier, he's a graduate of the University of Guanajuato. He's worked all over the world, but now he's come back to Guanajuato, and he is genuinely the life and soul of this project. And the success that Hernan and James want to replicate is that of Ramon Davila, also on our board. Ramon was the COO of First Majestic. He was responsible for the first decade of growth for that company. He put 4 silver mines into production. When he started there, they had 4 employees and no production. When he ended his time at First Majestic, they had 4,000 employees, and they were producing over 12,000 or 12 million silver equivalent ounces per year. Then he spent time as the economic minister within the state of Durango, but now he's come back. He's come back to mining, and he's coming back through Guanajuato Silver, and he has the exact same vision that James Anderson has. He views El Cubo as a platform from which to expand within the entire Guanajuato region. So I'm going to end it there, and I hope Mark is still around, and if he is, I'd be happy to try and take some questions if we have any.
We have more than a few here, JJ, but we're going to go real easy and gentle on you. That was a fantastic tour through the company. I have to say, especially at the end, getting to know the players behind the company, always very useful for the investment community. And it certainly generated some fantastic questions here. So we'll just we'll take off a few at a time as we go here to round up our time today. But thank you very much for stepping up and presenting on behalf of the company today. I'm going to start in by a question from Jacques. Says, based on the current mine plan and progress to date, when should GSilver and CF positive and free CF positive?
Yeah, again, as I mentioned a couple of times in the presentation, we're looking to go free cash flow positive in Q2 of this year. So we're still, I want to say, early days in the ramp up, and we're actually just going through setting up our financing or financial models for 2022. But that's the goal. We'd like to be a bit positive in Q1, but certainly free cash flow positive in Q2.
Thank you for that. Question comes in November. Guanajuato announced a new collective bargaining agreement with that union. Can you tell us a bit more about that, JJ?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we do have a new collective bargaining agreement with the union. This new agreement replaced one which had been around for 70 years. So the old version was quite archaic. This is a new, streamlined, much simpler agreement, and actually it provides for Guanajuato Silver significant cost savings. Now, in return for that, we are paying the union, I believe it's just under $500,000 US, but we believe, and that payment hasn't occurred yet, but we believe that some of that, if not all of that, will end up being in the form of shares in Guanajuato Silver. So we're actually very excited that the union will also be a shareholder of the company going forward. The previous owner, Endeavor Silver, they never actually experienced any work stoppages, but there was always some friction there. And I think this is a good point to highlight one element of Guanajuato Silver that I believe is actually unique to our company. So one of the reasons why we were able to get a new collective bargaining agreement with the union and secure union peace for the foreseeable future is because of how we manage our project in Mexico. Today, the entire project is managed by Mexican nationals, and that is not how most junior mining companies operate. Most junior mining companies, and it doesn't really matter the country, wherever they're operating, they will happily hire the locals for the labor. But when it comes to the actual management of the project, the mine manager or the COO, whoever, the actual management of the project on the ground, these are all held by expats. And ultimately, we believe that having, first off, we have absolute faith in the technical excellence of our Mexican partners.
Yes.
And we believe that this kind of structure, which again, I believe it's unique to Guanajuato Silver. I don't know another junior mining company that it's a producer that operates this way. I believe that this is going to help us in terms of maintaining our social license going forward. And of course, that's just been demonstrated by our ability to affect this new agreement with the union.
Very good. Excellent. Again, a well-rounded representation on the board. Thank you for that, JJ. What can you say here, just generally speaking, about the current political risks of operating in Mexico?
Well, that's a good question that does come up. So I've had the good fortune of being an investor in junior mining companies now for 20 years. And if anyone on this call has spent any time as being an investor in this space, then you often learn things the hard way. And what I've learned is that Canadian junior mining companies in particular do not do a good job in quantifying political risk. This same question was asked of our chairman and CEO, James Anderson, not too long ago. And his answer was that he was the CEO of a mining company. And so, of course, political risk was something that he was aware of and kept him up at night. And I think that's a very good answer, because most junior mining companies, Canadian junior mining companies, will minimize political risk, if not ignore it outright. So in Mexico today, and the reality is actually taking that further, it doesn't really matter how crazy the jurisdiction may be. There will always be a Canadian there flogging a resource deal. And I know, because I've worked in Sudan and the Ivory Coast and all kinds of interesting places. In Mexico, the primary issue is that there is a socialist government in place, and they are 3 years into a 6-year term. And if you listen to the rhetoric from that government regarding mining, it's largely not pro-mining. Now, a lot of what I've heard or hear seems to be directed towards new projects. Nobody wants a new project. This is pretty standard, but and that's not really our business. We're in the business of revitalizing, restarting older mines and bringing them back to optimal production.
Right.
But having said that, you look at these rankings. So you can go around and look at Fraser Institute, for example. They do rankings on countries in terms of political risk and attractiveness for investment, and attractiveness for investment specific to mining. If you look at Mexico, they're genuinely middle of the pack, and they have lost a place or two because of the current government in Mexico. But then if you look at the best jurisdictions in the world, like Nevada and Arizona, if I were to say to you, we've got a project in Arizona, you would say, that's great. That's one of the best jurisdictions you can be in. But even there, you have the government of the United States is trying to stop. There's a bill now before Congress to kill Resolution, which is one of the most significant copper mines in development today in the United States. So this is happening over socialist governments. Most Western countries today are actually run by socialist regimes. We are talking here in Canada. We have a socialist government in place, and they're certainly affecting my life. In the United States, it's the exact same thing. So what I'm trying to point out is that political risk, no matter where you are, you can be in the best jurisdiction in the world, in the United States, Arizona. It doesn't really matter where you are. It's just one of the challenges that you have to deal with, and it's certainly one that we're aware of.
That's great, JJ. Thank you for the perspective on that. Well thought out. Kenneth asked a question here. What is the grade in El Pinguico mining? Any idea about that?
Yeah, so again, this used to be one of the highest grade silver mines in Guanajuato, in Mexico. The current grades, so what I didn't highlight is, that's a good question. So what we are doing right now is we have exploration program in operation at Pinguico. And we will provide, I would hope this week, but certainly by next week, a comprehensive update on all the drilling that's occurred over the last few months. So things have been delayed a bit because of the assay labs. Yes. It's not just the exploration work at Pinguico. We're also doing resource definition drilling at El Cubo. All of this is about to come out in a press release. So at that point, everyone can look at the results and see where we're heading at Pinguico. The previous results we've put out, if people look back, they can go back earlier in the year. We did have some initial results on the first 10 holes, and we were actually drilling kilo material. So we believe we're going to duplicate exactly what occurred Pinguico over 100 years ago and generate another very high grade silver gold mine.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you, JJ. I'd love to dip back into this question, which is to ask folks like yourself from inside the company, if we were to look over the next 12-month period, what should we be watching for as investors, key benchmarks or turning points that we should keep an eye on?
Oh, well, I think that the regime we're in today in terms of an inflationary cycle is just going to continue. I mean, I'll tell you just as a side note, for Guanajuato Silver, we are making sure that all of our parts, spares, for example, are topped up and ready to go, because we look forward and say everything is going to be more expensive down the road. I think the inflationary cycle that's been kicked off by the current U.S. government is here, and it's real. It's not transitory, and I think that is the biggest element facing not just mining companies, but everywhere. I mean, if you try to do construction at your home, whatever you do, fill up the gas tank, go to the grocery store. We're all seeing it and feeling it. Inflation is here, and that is the big factor in our lives heading into 2022.
Okay, excellent point. Thank you for that. Let's leave this with a final question here, just in terms of the actual team. As you've said, very well-rounded. You have folks, your Mexican partners, as well as others on the board. Just how is Guanajuato positioned because of your team to make a huge difference in 2022?
Well, again, I think that when you look at the strength of the board, I highlighted Ramon de Villa, again, who was responsible for the growth of First Majestic, and he's very active in this company. So he's not, he was just actually here in Vancouver. We had a series of meetings looking at mine planning heading forward and into 2022. I think that if you look at James Anderson, I think he said it actually in the video, over his 35 years that he's been active in the resource industry, these partners, Hernan Dorado and his father, Gerardo Dorado, they are the best he's ever come across. These are really good people. And in terms of technical excellence, they're about as good as you're going to get. So we're really excited. I actually, in that video, if anyone bothers to replay it, you can see I'm sitting there in the audience. And when I was listening to Hernan Dorado give his speech to the audience, my exact thoughts were, do we have the best management team in Mexico? That's my genuine thought at that moment, because I really think that they have an excellent handle on not just El Cubo, but on what's ahead of us in terms of opportunity.
Fantastic, JJ. I'll say gracias for that very much. And one more time, Guanajuato Silver, my favorite name of the conference. You've done a fantastic job. We really appreciate, JJ, you stepping up and offering a tour through the company. The video was fantastic, and well done on the questions coming in from the audience today. So we'll send our very best. Know that we'll be watching the company closely. And to you and yours, I say happy holidays. Thank you for being part of our conference today.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciated being here. And of course, anyone listening to this, if you've heard something that interests you, I hope that you'll reach out and start a conversation with the newest precious metal producer in the world, Guanajuato Silver.